Among the many psychological types Carl Jung identified, there is one that stands apart, not just because it's rare, but because of its extraordinary complexity. This is the intuitive introvert. Jung considered this type to be one of the most difficult to understand, both by others and by the individual themselves. They are not focused on outward action or the physical world. Instead, their inner life is guided by symbolic imagery, sudden insights and unconscious patterns that are far beyond what most people can perceive. They don't rely on logic or what can be seen and touched. Their compass is internal. They sense meanings that haven't yet formed. They feel shifts in energy before anyone else notices, and they're guided by an invisible thread that ties them to something much deeper than what's happening on the surface. For this type, reality is more than facts. It's what lies beneath them, the essence, the soul, the pattern emerging from the collective unconscious. To them, external events are just shadows of something greater that's still unfolding beneath the surface. Jung described them as people who see what is coming long before it arrives. They are sensitive to spiritual and cultural shifts before these things become obvious to the rest of the world. But this ability comes at a cost. Society demands things that are concrete, proof, logic, results. And what this type perceives is often subtle, intangible, and impossible to explain in a rational way. This disconnect creates a painful gap between what the intuitive introvert knows internally and what the outside world is willing to accept. Their perceptions are dismissed, misunderstood, or even mocked. Imagine being the kind of person who instantly picks up on a hidden truth about someone they just met, who feels tension in the air before a fight breaks out, who already senses how something will unfold long before there are signs. But when they try to speak about it, they are met with disbelief or silence, so they stop sharing, they go inward, they protect their inner world, keeping it private and untouched, and that's where the danger begins. Jung warned that when an intuitive introvert has no way to express what they see and feel, whether through language, art, or action, those visions can turn against them. The inner world, instead of being a place of revelation, becomes a kind of prison. The images they carry, if not integrated into conscious thought, start to take on a life of their own. They become overwhelming, uncontrollable. The person no longer sees the images, they are possessed by them. This is Jung's dark warning. The incredible gift of deep intuition, if not balanced, can become a path to psychological dissociation. The person risks being consumed by their own perceptions. Let's explore this journey more closely. What does it mean to be this kind of person? What are the unique risks they face? And how can they unlock the extraordinary power of their mind without becoming lost in it? To understand this personality, we need to understand what Jung meant by introverted intuition. Intuition, in Jung's framework, is a way of knowing that bypasses logic or sensory data. It draws from something deeper, something primal and symbolic. In the case of the introverted intuitive, this function turns inward. Instead of scanning the outside world for possibilities, they tune into the unconscious and its vast, unspoken landscape. They receive images and impressions that don't always make sense in the moment. They might have a sudden vision, a dreamlike insight, or a symbolic knowing that doesn't yet connect to any real-life situation. These are not hallucinations. They are raw psychic truths rising up from the depths. For the intuitive introvert, life is filled with hidden layers. An ordinary moment can carry immense symbolic weight. A conversation might echo with something unspoken. A place may feel charged with meaning others can't see. Their mind acts like a spiritual radar, picking up frequencies that exist just beneath the surface of everyday life. When this power is channeled properly, it becomes a wellspring of profound insight. They can detect the deeper motivations behind people's actions. They can anticipate changes long before they occur. But because their connection to the physical sensory world is often underdeveloped, they can lose touch with reality. Their intuition can start running wild, detached from experience, ungrounded in the real world. And when that happens, they become adrift in a sea of inner images. Many of them powerful, but not all of them helpful. Symbolic visions that are not translated into thought, speech, or creation begin to act like static in the psyche. Confusion sets in. Paralysis, even breakdown. Their world becomes self-contained, a parallel reality, a dream that no one else shares. Jung believed that for intuitive introverts to live well, they must learn to understand and work with their own inner material. They have to discern which images are meaningful and which are fantasies. This takes inner structure, stillness, practice, and above all, a willingness to bring the inner world into outer form. Because if they don't, those same visions that once felt magical begin to twist. The boundary between wisdom and illusion collapses. What was once symbolic revelation becomes a lonely delusion. Jung described patients who would have vivid, almost mythic inner experiences, like a snake coiling inside them and rising to the surface. Most would see this as madness. Jung saw it as transformation. The snake represented repressed material, and when it reached consciousness, it became a symbol of healing. This is how intuitive introverts work, not through facts but through images. Not by explaining, but by revealing. But if those revelations never make it into the outer world, through art, writing, or meaningful action, they collapse in on themselves. The person begins to lose the ability to tell the difference between inner truth and inner fantasy, and that's where it gets dangerous. Without this clarity, the intuitive introvert may start to believe they are special, chosen for something unique. This isn't ego in the usual sense. It's something deeper. A subtle inflation of the self caused by unconscious identification with powerful archetype. They may begin to feel like a prophet, a visionary, misunderstood by a shallow society. They may reject all criticism, convinced that others are too asleep to understand. Their isolation deepens not because of pain, but because they see it as proof of their superiority. Their identity fuses with the symbols they carry, the wise one, the martyr, the misunderstood genius. But in doing this, they lose their humanity. Jung called this inflatio, a kind of psychological swelling where the ego becomes filled with archetypal energy and forgets its limits. Relationships become strained, practical life is ignored, and any threat to their vision is rejected as an attack. They are no longer living, they are floating. But not every intuitive introvert goes down this path. There is a way out, and it begins with expression. The ability to give shape to what's inside. Through painting, poetry, storytelling, music, even simple rituals. This is not about being an artist. It's about translating the invisible into form. When the inner world finds a way to be expressed, it stops being a threat. It becomes creation, communication, healing. We see this in Kafka, whose writing captured the absurd terror of modern life. In Van Gogh, whose chaotic soul spilled into color and form. In Jung himself, who turned his visions into a map of the psyche. When the intuitive introvert externalizes their perceptions, their loneliness becomes a shared language. Their insights impact others. Their strange inner world becomes a light for those wandering in darkness. But expression alone is not enough. They must also ground themselves in reality, in the moment, in the simplicity of life. Because if they don't, even creativity becomes a form of escape. That's why Jung emphasized the need to develop the opposite function, sensation. This is the part of us that connects to the real world, to texture, movement, food, rhythm, light. For the intuitive introvert, these things might seem dull or irrelevant, but they are essential. Through grounding practices, walking, cooking, gardening, working with the hands, they reconnect with the present. The symbol becomes real. The vision takes root. Intuition is no longer a mystery, it becomes a guide. This balance allows them to move between both worlds, inner and outer. Invisible and visible. It's what makes them whole. But even with this balance, there remains one final challenge: living their truth in a world that does not value what cannot be seen. Modern society is obsessed with productivity, logic, and what can be measured. Deep intuition, symbolic meaning, silent understanding, these things are often dismissed. The intuitive introvert must choose, again and again, whether to stay true to what they know or conform to what is expected. It's not an easy path. It means staying silent when no one would understand. It means holding on to a vision even when others call it nonsense. It means creating something from the soul, even when the world demands results. But in doing so, they become something powerful, not through domination, but through presence, through truth. They reveal that beyond all the noise and chaos of the modern world, there is something deeper, something timeless, something sacred, and that might just be what the world needs most. If this spoke to you, if you felt seen, then you're not alone. Your voice, your vision, your quiet truth matters more than you know. Keep going, keep grounding, keep expressing, and never forget your inner world is not a flaw, it's a gift, but only if you learn how to live it out loud.